It's been 5 months already since the Switch 2 dropped. Can you believe it? I mean, it wasn't too long ago when we were anticipating the inevitable arrival of the successor to the Switch 1. And it came, and it went, and it's still here. Technically, it's only been 5 months, but still, it's crazy to think that it's been 5 months. And in those 5 months, I mean, we've had quite a great output, right? We've had Mario Kart at launch, we had Pokemon, we had Donkey Kong Bonanza, which granted I have not played yet because expensive, but hey, we've had a decent output in the last 5 months, and it's only gonna get better. I mean, a few days from now, at the time of recording, Hyrule Warriors is dropping as well, which, by the way, if you didn't know, I love Warrior-style games, which I know a lot of people don't really like, but I personally really love because they're just really fun hack and slash, and they're just, I don't know, they're good, they're great, especially the Zelda ones, like the last one, phenomenal storytelling, because you actually had like cutscenes, it felt like a movie. Anyway, so that's coming out, and then next month we have the long-awaited Metroid Prime 4, which people have been waiting for several years. I mean, when did they announce it? 2019, I think? Someone fact check. Someone being me in the future. But it's been a long time coming. A lot of people are excited for it. I sure am. But just because something's been long-awaited doesn't mean it's necessarily good. I'm looking at you, Vampire the Masquerade. But yeah, it's still exciting. You know, we have games that are coming out, games that have already released, and we've also had a number of third-party games that have also released for the platform too, which have finally come here for the first time, which is great to see that they're actually performing pretty well. I mean, again, I don't have a lot of those games specifically for the Switch 2, like Cyberpunk 2077, but from what I've seen, it runs surprisingly really well on that console. Like, it's pretty damn smooth. So if you want like a, you know, Cyberpunk experience on the go, there you have it. I mean, you also have the Steam Deck, but I think that the Steam Deck actually runs worse for this particular case. It's not as well optimized, interestingly enough. Besides the point. I mean, I'd probably still recommend most of these third-party games on a different platform, if you can get it on those, because they are ultimately going to be better on there, right? But hey, if you have nowhere else to play it, they're available here, and I think it works pretty great. Although, in certain circumstances, you might actually have the advantage by playing it on here. For example, something like Yakuza 0, which has the director's cut. Now, I don't know too much about all the little details, because again, I'm not rebuying Yakuza 0 just to play it on here, as much as I love the series. But anyway, again, you know, besides the point, we have a bunch of third-party games that have finally come to the console, that were also previously on the console, like Hogwarts Legacy, that are running really well, or running much better than they did on the Switch 1. So there's a positive there. But most people do not come to Nintendo for the third-party games. I mean, if you were gonna play third-party games, you could literally go anywhere. But no, people buy Nintendo for Mario and Zelda and Metroid and whatever else. They're gonna buy it for the exclusives, and because the exclusives cannot be found anywhere else, hence the term, Nintendo's got you on lock, and they know that they can charge kind of whatever they want, unfortunately. We'll get more into the pricing stuff aside later, but yeah, there is an unfortunate side to all of this. But anyway, firstly, I want to focus on some of the games that have released. So Mario Kart World, that dropped immediately, day and date, shipped with a console. You could also have bought it packaged with it, which is what I did, because it was cheaper ultimately to do that. And yeah, it was really nice. It was a breath of fresh air. It was finally refreshing to finally play something that wasn't Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, that wasn't just an update to an older game. Though I do like the 8 Deluxe a lot as well. It's a good game, but it was nice to have something a little different for once. You know, it's been a while. It was time for a refresh. And we got it with this version. We had new tracks, new modes, 24 players, which was really awesome. Uber Eats, by which I mean the food power-up thing. You know what I'm talking about. And a really nice roster. Maybe not quite as good. I am, to be honest, a little bit disappointed that we're not getting some from the other Nintendo games. And so, you know, I guess it kind of makes it a reason to go back to 8 Deluxe as well. But yeah, it's been a nice little change. Now, to be honest, I did hop off of Mario Kart World pretty quickly after launch. I mean, I played it quite a lot, but, you know, there's only so much you can play of that game, especially if that's the only new game that you have on the console. And, you know, it's Mario Kart at the end of the day. Like, I like Mario Kart, I enjoy playing it, but I mostly play it with friends and other people. Otherwise, if I'm playing alone, it's not really as fun. There's only so much you can play of it, but that's just me. But that's my point, though. The other thing is that, yeah, even though we've had quite a few games that have released in the last 5 months, it's been feeling a little lagging, to be quite honest. Yes, my Switch actually has been collecting kind of a lot of dust. I hate to say it, but it has. You know, apart from when I played Mario Kart and recently the new Pokemon. But between then, I didn't really get a whole lot of usage out of it because, I mean, what else was I going to play? Just my old Switch 1 games? Sure, I mean, I do have a bit of a backlog, but I'm playing a whole bunch of new games as well on the other consoles, and I have a backlog on there too. But that's the point, right? Like, there's only so much that you could play. There isn't a lot coming out apart from those, and like Donkey Kong Bonanza. There's more coming, and that's not to say that I didn't expect this, because to be honest, it's not just a Switch or a Nintendo exclusive thing. It's really sort of generation-wide, because if you look at the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, when they launched, they didn't have a whole lot to offer either, and they still don't. And part of the reason, though, even with, you know, like I said, one of the games that I just mentioned that is for the Switch is Pokemon Legends ZA. And hey, I'm actually having a lot of fun with that game, despite, you know, all of its issues and whatnot. Because, you know, Pokemon, I mean, the last few years hasn't been the best, to say the least. I mean, and mostly Pokemon in general for the last few years has been lacking, if I'm being honest, even though I have been enjoying them. And a lot of people have been enjoying them. But what a lot of people also complain about, and the other side of it, and I can totally see why people aren't picking it up, is mostly because, you know, it's not only pricey as any Nintendo game is, but especially when you're comparing it to, you know, other Nintendo games. I mean, Nintendo games have never been the upper echelon of fidelity. They've never been the most graphically demanding powerhouse things. Obviously not, right? We know exactly when we're comparing it to the other ones, they don't compare. People only compare to it, and they have the market, as I said, because of those exclusives, and they're fun, and they're well made, and they're done really well, and they're optimized generally really well for the platform they're made for. But nobody comes to Nintendo because it's, you know, the best high-end sort of gaming that you can get. But no, they come for the exclusives and the likes. But even then, like, if we're talking about Pokemon is on the lower end of Nintendo stuff. Like, if you compare that to, like, Tears of the Kingdom, which ran surprisingly well on the Switch 1, and I talked at length about that, so you can check the card here somewhere, about how much I raved and loved that game, despite some of the issues I had. When you compare those two, like, it's night and day, right? Like, that pushed it to its limit, and it's surprising that it could run on there. Pokemon, on the other hand, it could. I don't understand why it's not better at this point, graphically speaking. I'm not expecting it to be like The Last of Us, okay? Like, I'm not. Let's be real here. I'm just expecting it to look better than it is, better than a PS3 game. That's not to say PS3 is bad, but in 2025, I mean, it kind of is. Now, look, yeah, Pokemon Legends ZA I have been having a lot of fun with, because it has changed up the formula. I know a lot of people might not particularly like it, especially hardcore fans who like turn-based, and I can see why. But personally, I like the change-up. I like the active combat. It is something that I've been looking for a long time, and I think a lot of people have been wanting for a long time. So it's a nice change-up to the formula, and that's kind of the point of the Legend series, which, to be honest, I actually enjoy more than traditional Pokemon because it feels fresh and new, and which is why I loved Arceus or Arceus or however it's pronounced more than some of the other ones that I've played. And so I've been loving this one as well. I've been having a lot of fun. It has its own other critiques as well, but from a performance side of things, though, generally Pokemon doesn't do well. Like, it even struggles, even given how it looks, especially if we look at Scarlet and Violet, which, by the way, mind you, the Switch 2 edition of that game looks much better, and it looks how it finally should, which is a good thing. It just should have looked that way to begin with, to be honest. But if we're looking at ZA specifically now, it runs really smoothly. I've never had any issues or frame drops or anything of that sort, especially on the Switch 2. I don't know how it runs on the Switch 1, but I imagine it's fine. But I would still expect it to look better than just having windows that look painted on. You know, I'm not expecting, again, something super amazing, but just a little bit better than what it is, right? But that aside, I think that's one thing. I think Game Freak just doesn't really care to improve things because they keep making money, and maybe I'm part of the problem. No, I am part of the problem. But like, yeah, they are just going to keep making money, and so it doesn't really incentivize them to do better in that department, in that realm, and I get it. So that's part of it. But the other part of it is also a thing that not only plagues really just this console in particular, but really all in the generation. And as I've been saying, it's been a slow start for all three when they launched, and really kind of is still slow because we've had a lot of cross-gen games. And cross-gen games are both a good thing and a bad thing. I don't know exactly how to feel about it, because on one hand, you know, it's nice that you can play a new modern game without having to buy and dish out like all this cash to buy the new fancy shiny thing. You can just play it on whatever you've got already, which is nice. But on the other hand, it also holds back the potential of that particular game, because the game needs to be made and optimized well enough for it to run on that previous hardware. So I feel like a part of it, especially with something like Pokemon Legends ZA, is also that, where I don't feel like it also reached its full potential of it being as good as it could have been, because it's being held back by the Switch 1. Now, that's not to say that it doesn't look better. It does. If you do a side-by-side comparison, you can definitely tell the difference. I think even if you play it, you can probably tell the difference, like if you play both of them. But it's not like a world of difference either. But I feel like maybe there might have been a chance for it to be something completely overhauled or something different if we just continued to make games specifically for the console that they are, or for the generation that they're for, right? Instead of making cross-gen. I don't know how to feel about it, because I don't want people to have to spend that. Obviously, it's not a nice idea, but then at the same time, it also feels like the game itself and developers and whatnot are being held back, and that's a whole other conversation for a whole other video, especially given the Series S, but again, different conversation. But that aside, the Switch 2 isn't really something that we weren't expecting it to be. It's, in fact, exactly what we were expecting it to be. If anyone expected any different, something revolutionary, something completely different, I don't know what to tell you. It was pretty obvious and evident from everything that we've seen that that's not what it is. It is essentially just an iteration of the Switch 1, but better. And the things that I particularly like about this console isn't so much necessarily really, you know, the output of games, although I would love a greater output of games, because otherwise what is the point of it, to be honest. But it's really the much needed hardware revisions that were long overdue in 2025. I mean, look, the Switch 1 was a great little console, a great little device, you know, especially at the price point that it was. But to be honest, what it was rocking with, like the internal specs, was maybe just slightly better than a PS3. And yeah, like that isn't going to do any favors for anyone when it comes to any new games. And so, yes, this was a very much needed thing, which is why it was so long awaited. And it's just nice to finally have this much bigger screen that we can rock, right? I just love this thing. It looks nicer, it looks cleaner, and, you know, obviously you can finally play it at a surprisingly high frame rate. I don't think I've seen any device, especially handheld, do 120 frames, which is crazy. 120 at 1080p. Yes, it is still an LCD screen, but it's a really good one. It's not one where I'm constantly looking at it and going, oh, this is an LCD. No, this is a really good LCD. It's not like the old one. So, you know, the screen itself was much needed and is definitely a reason to buy it, right? And then obviously everything feels solid. We actually have a proper kickstand, which the first one really should have had, actually. But anyway, we finally have a proper kickstand. Although, actually, the OLED has one, but I'm talking about compared to the base model. Anyway, but aside from that, yeah, we have a nice kickstand, and then obviously the more important thing with the Joy-Cons. Like, I just love these things, man. Magnetic is the way to go. It's just nice. You can just snap it in, and it just works. It's really, really good. It's much better than sliding up the rails. I mean, not that the rail sliding gave any issues, unless you, for some reason, just didn't know how to use it. Seek help. And, which, by the way, when considering price point, like, yes, it's maybe not the cheapest, it's still pretty pricey. Compared to other handhelds, you can't get something like this at this price point. It's pretty impressive for what it can do. And then on top of all that, the thing that was probably the most important thing for me which I talked about in a previous Switch video, is really the ability to play games in 4K. Finally. Which, oh, yeah, okay. Technically, it's not really 4K, it's upscaled to 4K, but still, it's better than nothing. I'm just glad that we're not stuck in 1080p. I know we're at a point where the stuff that, like, we're at a very low point where the stuff that we're demanding is pretty low, but hey, this is Nintendo we're talking about, so I'll take what I can get. But one of the best things is not just, these brand new games that are coming, but also old games and being able to see them in all their full glory, especially something like Tears of the Kingdom. Again, it was a powerhouse on the Switch 1, and I'm surprised that it was able to run on that thing. But now, we finally get to see it in its full glory with the, extra textures, all the extra detail. It looks phenomenal on that thing. And it's probably one of the best things and highlights of playing on this thing. Now, going back to being able to play modern games on previous hardware because you don't want to dish out all that extra money, which I understand, right? Because these are pricey things. And that's kind of actually what I want to talk about. The price of things. I understand all of that. I'm like, yes, even though I am absolutely loving this thing, right? And I think there are plenty of reasons to buy one of these. And even as a reviewer and enthusiast, I still probably wouldn't buy this thing if it weren't for something even bigger, a bigger problem that plagues not only this, but really the industry as a whole. I'm not going to get too much into it because I feel like it is due for a separate video entirely, but I think really the biggest factor for me for purchasing one of these at launch was really the tariffs and the increasing prices of everything. It's not even just this industry, it's all industries where prices are going up, especially because of said tariffs. And yes, obviously, since it's launched, it hasn't gone up in price just yet, but the market is also hard to predict. You never know. Unfortunately, that's the way it is now, because once upon a time where you'd be rewarded for your patience, now you are punished for it. And of course, I didn't know exactly if it was going to go up and when, but I feel like at some point it will. And sure, it hasn't gone up just yet, but maybe some point soon it will. And part of it, maybe it was just like a scare tactic, I don't know. But especially when Nintendo not only announced that they would be eventually probably raising the price of this at some point, but also actually raising the price of the 8-year-old Switch 1. Yeah, that's kind of another thing that made me really push for this and jump towards this, because, like, man, if that's gonna get an increase, surely this will too. I mean, we also saw the PS5 and the Xbox go up, not once, but twice, and so I was like, well, damn, I think I might need to get one of these. Obviously, yes, I like all the things it has to offer, but if it really wasn't for that final big push, then I don't know if I would have bought this thing. At least not just yet. But because I bought it at launch, and being afraid of scalpers, I bought the only bundle I could find, which was obviously with Mario Kart, which was nice, but then they also threw in the camera, a couple extra Joy-Cons, and a couple steering wheels, which meant that I had spent way more than I had anticipated. Oh! Yep. Now, yes, the extra pair of Joy-Cons is kind of handy because, in case one of them dies, you have an extra set, or if something happens where you have drift, which, by the way, I would have loved if they actually properly fixed these. These are better than the Switch 1 sticks, but, come on. But Nintendo does what Nintendo wants, and I really wish what they did want was giving us some Hall Effect sticks, or better sticks at that. I mean, they're not bad by any means. They're much better than the Switch 1 ones, I guess. But it would have been really nice. But I was also one of the lucky few who didn't get stick drift because I rarely ever used my Joy-Cons. And obviously Joy-Cons are notoriously known for getting stick drift more than any other controller out there. But I was one of the lucky few who didn't get it. But that was mostly because I rarely ever used it. And as you know, I play most of my games docked, so that's probably why. And I always choose to opt for a controller when I can. And in this case, I decided to opt for this one, which is the 8BitDo Ultimate 2C. It's probably the best Switch controller I've used so far. Even better than my Pro 1 controller, which I had to stop using because it started to fray, but comfort-wise it's much better, and for about £26, This is an awesome value. I mean, I've also tried out the actual official Pro 2 controller. I don't own one. I don't even own a Pro 1 controller because they're really wildly expensive. And it feels about the same, yet it's much cheaper. And it also, get this, has the Hall effects. I can't remember if the Switch 2 ones do. I'll have to confirm. Editor me has to confirm. He'll tell me. But, yeah, like, for the price that it is, this is an incredible thing. 8BitDo makes some incredible controllers, and I really, really recommend going for something like this rather than, you know, the official ones. But that's a whole other side tangent that I went on. But what I was really trying to say was that the extra things I got weren't really necessary at all. Like, okay, the extra Joy-Cons, they were nice, because at least I can swap them, as I said. And then the steering wheels, I definitely don't need those. And then you have the camera, which is, I mean, look, it's kind of cool because you get to see your friends' faces when you're playing Mario Kart and playing other games and whatever. But number one, it's locked behind the GameChat thing, which you have to pay an extra subscription for. And then two, like, nobody really uses it. I don't know how many people use it or have it because it is pricey for what it is. And, like, yeah. I mean, feels like a gimmick because it is a gimmick. And like the game chat itself that they included, I mean, it's fine, again, but I'm never going to use it. And 9 times out of 10, I'm going to be using Discord over it. Again, it's a nice feature, but it sucks that you have to pay the subscription to access it. So apparently you don't need to actually pay for a subscription to use game chat. You can just use it just like that, at least up until March 31st, 2026. That is when they decide that they are going to start charging. Right now, it is considered a promotional welcome offer or something. Pretty scummy, but that's what it is. Oh, yeah, and another thing is you don't even actually need the Switch 2 camera. You can actually just use really any USB-C webcam. I mean, my friend was even able to use his Sony camera, apparently, via Elgato Cam Link to hook it up and play Mario Kart. So, I mean, then it makes this even more so redundant, especially with the price. Like, I don't know why anyone would ever buy something like this in that case. And so, I think this actually should belong in the trash. So I'm just gonna... Yeah. I'm kidding. I'm not actually gonna throw this is still expensive. But also, who knows? Maybe they might change it. I mean, like I said, Nintendo does what Nintendo wants. That's what I always say. And in this case, maybe they'll just have another welcome offer thing or an update that requires you to only be able to use this instead of anything else. So I was just about to wrap up filming when I went on Twitter and I saw that the Switch 2 has sold over 10 million units. That is insane. Within less than 5 months, that is pretty damn record-breaking. I mean, it's almost as many units as the Wii U sold in its entire life cycle. Like, that's pretty crazy to me, I don't know. But yeah, it squashes any doubt that the Switch 2 would be basically another Wii U, because it absolutely isn't. It is doing just fine. In fact, more than fine, obviously. But in this case, I would say it is actually really good. It's just maybe not to the standard or the expectations some people might have had. But again, it's the Switch 2. The 2 is right on there so that you can make no mistake that this is an iteration of the first one. It's not anything crazy, and it never was going to be. But on the other side, I am kind of surprised that it's selling as well as it is. And not because of how it performs or how good it is, but because of sort of the economic state we're in and the costs rising with everything going on. So that just gets me thinking, if prices weren't an issue and it didn't continue to inflate, would this have sold even more by now? It's crazy to think about, but yeah. But anyway, that is my long-awaited Switch 2 review. I wanted to post it months ago when it dropped, but I was in the process of moving, so I haven't been able to put out really any videos. So this is kind of a way to make up for that. But I also want to hear your thoughts. Have you picked one up yet? And if not, are you planning on picking up one soon? And if you have, what do you think so far? Have you been enjoying the current output of games? And is there something you're especially looking forward to? Let me know all of that down below. And until next time, I'll see you guys soon.